In the deep sea, there are two pathways that all marine life must choose from. Whether to live on the sea floor or to brave the expansive open ocean of the midwater zone. In the previous video, we explored the benthic and demersal life that dwells on the bottom of the ocean, and studied the advantages of adopting such a lifestyle in the deep sea. Now we'll take a look at the pelagic creatures of the deep. Organisms that inhabit the water column of the open ocean, rarely coming near the shore or the bottom. The open ocean is an entirely different world to the benthic zone of the sea floor. The endless blue stretches away in all directions, while the black abyss hangs gaping below. Currents are stronger here. There is no shelter to be found, and food is hard to come by. But all the same, a plethora of life has found ways to survive here, from the surface all the way down into the abyss, utilising some unexpected adaptations to overcome the challenges of life in the open ocean. We'll begin our investigation at the surface of the high seas. Of all the zones of the open ocean, here is the most abundant. Whales glide through the waves. Pods of dolphins ride the powerful currents, and all manner of pelagic creatures can be found feeding at the surface. The secret to its diversity is sunlight, for here is the Photic zone, also called the Epipelagic or sunlight zone. Light from above is able to penetrate down to a depth of 200 meters, and within this uppermost layer, phytoplankton is able to undergo photosynthesis to provide food for the life here in the upper water column. As a result, productivity is remarkably high. Coastal forage fish such as herrings and sardines form massive bait balls near the surface. Large apex predators make the most of the opportunity. Bluefin tuna, sailfish, and oceanic sharks, all adapted to be agile swimmers with streamlined bodies, capable of sustaining them on long-distance migrations. Many of these pelagic fish swim in schools in order to move more efficiently, and to protect themselves from predators, as there are no landforms to provide shelter. Other species are solitary, such as the large ocean sunfish. This species drifts passively along, and it manages to turn the strong currents here into an advantage. It drifts along with them, eating jellyfish and laying on its side to allow seabirds to rid it of skin parasites. The marine pelagic environment is the largest aquatic habitat on Earth, and is the habitat for 11% of known fish species. Imagine a cylinder or water column that reaches from the surface of the ocean to almost the bottom. As you travel deeper, conditions in the column change. Pressure begins to increase. Temperature and light decrease, as does the amount of dissolved oxygen. We can divide the column into 5 different layers. At the top is the Epipelagic zone, which we have just examined. Below it, the Mesopelagic zone is found in its gloomy deep blue shade. Already just 200 meters down, we find a drastically different environment. Residual light is dim, so photosynthesis cannot occur. Instead, nutrients are supplied from above. Death and defecation but the marine snow that carries this nutrient-rich organic material only briefly passes through. It cannot settle here, out in the open, so life must find inventive ways to make the most of it. Pelagic polycate worms build giant mucus nets around themselves to catch the falling food. The odd-looking vampire squid extends a long filamentous tentacle into the water column, bringing captured particles back to its mouth. Marine snow is the backbone of the food web here, but not all of it can be taken out of the water column in time. The majority of nutrients from productivity of pelagic creatures ends up sinking to the sea floor, where it is more concentrated than in the open ocean. This could explain why demersal life on the sea floor is more abundant than pelagic life. Food comes to them. Pelagic creatures do not benefit much from the productivity of demersal life, but demersal life benefits greatly from them via this trickle-down of nutrients. So, food is scarce in the depths of the pelagic zone. A challenge that creatures must adapt in order to overcome. They do this in a number of ways, but most common is the adaptation known as Abyssal Gigantism, the tendency of deep-sea creatures to grow larger than their shallow water relatives. On the sea floor, fish benefit from being flat or long and narrow. But here, their best chances of survival come from growing to be far larger. This is because being bigger means they have a smaller surface area to volume ratio, so they lose less energy as heat. They become more efficient. In the case of many creatures like the Greenland shark, they also develop highly slowed metabolisms. Thus, the little food they do come across can sustain them for longer. But the case of this particular deep-sea shark also demonstrates the idea that the pelagic and demersal zones are not independent of one another. As food is hard to come by, pelagic creatures of the Mesopelagic and Bathypelagic zones must become opportunistic in their feeding methods. This means that they frequent the demersal zone in order to feed, descending from the open water above to hunt the seafloor creatures or scavenge sunken corpses. This represents one advantage of choosing the pelagic way of life. Unlike benthic life, pelagic life can swim freely in any direction, unhindered by topographical constraints. So they can make use of the demersal ecosystem, almost as a service station of the deep sea, stopping by to snack on the concentrated life of these biological hotspots. Contrastingly, benthic life has specific requirements. They cannot stray far from the sea floor and must make use of their immediate environment. For example, if there are no rocky surfaces, corals and sponges cannot survive, so fish that rely on such creatures cannot live there. Without having to worry about these constraints, pelagic creatures are often more successful, living longer due to their ability to better adapt to different environments. But an advantage of the demersal lifestyle is the abundance of shelter found on the sea floor. In the open ocean, there are no reefs and no seamounts to provide protection from predators. So deep-sea creatures have had to be creative with their adaptations. Making use of the absence of light, most creatures of the pelagic deep are black, red, or transparent. These are the least visible colours in the depths, so creatures like this red whale fish are less visible to creatures on the hunt. Overall, pelagic creatures display entirely different adaptations to animals of the benthic zone, They tend to be larger, differently coloured, and more adaptable to different environments, due to their tendency to traverse the great expanse of the open ocean. But whether this way of life is more or less advantageous than that of seafloor creatures depends on perspective. On the one hand, they are more efficient, but on the other they must work harder to move and find food. So, to conclude, benthic and pelagic lifestyles represent two vastly different but equally viable methods of survival in the extreme conditions of the deep. Their differences are a testament to the astounding ability of life to adapt in weird and wonderful ways to these environments, and to colonize every part of the expansive deep sea ecosystem. Check out the brand new Deep Sea Hub over on our website for more facts and footage about the deep sea.